MIP, make it plain, and glad you could all join us and be here with us once again. And we've got a very special guest joining us today as well. It is Black History Month. So we always do well when we talk about people who are continuing to make Black history every day. And our brother is doing that as the president of the National Medical Association. He is our dear brother, Dr. Roger Mitchell. My brother, how are you? I call everybody doc, but I can actually, Black folks, we call, hey, doctor.
Yeah.
You actually are doctor, right? So I can.
Yeah, you good with the love and you good with the accuracy. It's good to see you, Reverend Mark.
Hey,
My good brother. How are you?
Fine. It's good to see you as well. So much going on. I want to and appreciate Michael for setting us up. I want to start off with something though. Dr. Mitchell, is there a medical impact upon us when we experience racism, especially prominently? Somebody calling the first posting that the first Black president, first Black lady are apes. And then we see that and we get upset about it. But I'm just asking you, does that have a medical is there a medical aspect to that? Is that something that affects us, that stresses us? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, that's cortisol, right? If we want a real scientific response, and then I'll give you, my personal response. The scientific response is that cortisol is released by our adrenal glands, and that's our stress hormone. And what it does, it prepares us to either fight or flight. It prepares us to either run,
right,
or put our hands up and fight. And when we engage in racism, when racism is placed upon us, that stress hormone comes up. We get angry. We get emotional. We either want to retreat, or many of us want to square up and put our dukes up. And the chronic nature of that, it's good when cortisol and our stress hormone is engaged at intermittent bursts so that we can engage the threat. It's a good thing. It makes us stronger. It dilates our pupils, all of those things. But when it's chronic, it can really tear down our organs. It can really have an effect on our heart and our brain and our liver and our kidneys. And so racism, particularly as we sustain it, these chronic, consistent threats that make us stressed out and anxious about how our country sees us and how we see ourselves, and this notion that we have to be better and greater and jump higher and run faster than anyone to be, quote, accepted or not accepted. These reminders that are placed upon us to suggest that we're something less than the person next to us that has a skin that wasn't kissed by the sun. These things lead to heart disease. They lead to kidney disease in chronic forms. That's the science. The personal is that there's no doubt. There's no doubt that we get anxious. We get upset. We have to talk about it in our homes. I spent time talking about it in my homes with my wife and my kids. It takes up time for us to have to process it. So for sure, it has an effect.
So, having said that, might I also hypothesize, scientific word, y'all, that stress has a silent effect. I mean, we go through, we don't really realize it though, do we? I mean, most people endure this. We've been talking about it all weekend, but some of the effects you described, we don't necessarily feel them immediately. Aren't they Aren't they cumulative and to some extent silent stressors, if not silent killers?
Well, the effects of them, right, on the organs and on our hearts, particularly the stress hormone affects our cardiovascular system the worst. Um, it affects how we relate to our loved ones as well through our mental health. Those effects are chronic and silent and cumulative, meaning they build up over time. They're generational. In some, they believe, there's research that suggests that chronic stress creates ar- artifact in our DNA. It decreases our telomere length, and that stress can be carried down from generation to generation in our genome. So there's no doubt that they're silent stressors in how they affect our heart, but they're real stressors and day-to-day stressors in how we deal with them in real time, like we're dealing with it right now, like we're talking about it right now. There's a level of stress that comes along with even processing our environment when our environment is not friendly to us.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's real. So those are the what Trump did really is not what we call a microaggression. That was a macroaggression. But then there are the issues of policy, and you are here to inform us of several things. One, and those of you got questions for Dr. Roger Mitchell, the National Medical Association president, 202 Those of you listening on listening to MIP on 89.3, God bless you all for joining. And those of you watching on the live stream, you can call 202-588-0893. The United States, Trump has what? Withdrawn from the World Health Organization?
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, he had put this in motion, but a couple weeks ago, on January 22nd, 2026, the United States has withdrawn from the World Health Organization. And we've been part of the World Health Organization for about 75 years. So yeah, WHO and United States have split.
What does that mean? And what impact does that have on African Americans and Africans throughout the world, Dr. Mitchell?
Yeah, so WHO really does a good job at providing surveillance to infectious disease, to communicable diseases, to even non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular disease and sickle cell and diabetes, really the disease state of the globe. And when countries are part of the WHO, we get real time information, particularly surrounding those diseases like a COVID, like an anthrax, those infectious diseases that can lead to increase suffering and death, which we call morbidity and mortality. And that's how we can understand how people are moving into our country that may have visited local countries. That's how we give warnings out. Our CDC can give warnings out because they're connected into the global public health infrastructure. That global public health infrastructure really sets us up to be able to communicate with local health departments and then put out local news. Hey, watch this if you're going here, if you're traveling there. These are the types of things that keep Americans safe from a public health standpoint that we no longer have access to.
Wait a minute. I want y'all to hear what he just said. Uh, Relationship with the World Health Organization and that network allows for knowledge, if not scrutiny, of people moving throughout the world being exposed to different diseases. This clown is obsessing with ICE over citizenry So what I infer from what you're saying, Dr. Mitchell, it's more urgent. What's more urgent than just rounding up immigrants for the sake of rounding up immigrants is to be connected to a World Health Organization or the World Health Organization that can inform everyone of the risks to our physical health based upon how people move throughout the world. Right? In other words, shouldn't that be I mean, you want to know that. You would want to know that more than rounding up people who aren't even criminals and trying to ship them out of the country. You want to know, hey, who's moving around, who's here, who has what, not to persecute them, but just so that the public is aware of what diseases exist, what epidemics or pandemics might be about. You're saying we're cut off from that information now, that knowledge. United States is.
That's right. That's right. And these are the types of silent movement that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
That, because of these memes that we just talked about, that keep people focused on the emotional nature of racism. There's true geopolitical racism that's happening, and it's the individuals that are most disenfranchised that are going to be affected. Right? It's the individuals that aren't going on their own and keeping up to date
Right.
on the public health global structures. Right? It's individuals that truly rely on their local Department of Public Health to put out alerts, their local journalists to put out news about what's going on in the country and in the globe. It's those that are suffering from chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension that affect our community worse than any other, that will be affected if another uninhibited infectious disease like a COVID hits our communities. These are the types of things that we want to know well beforehand. Well, as they're promulgated, as they're proliferating in other parts of the world, we want to know that before it gets to our shores. And this notion that science and medicine and data is not something that we should be constantly looking at and being vigilant. The fact that we're not doing that shows how incompetent
Right.
the leadership is, both in HHS and in the White House.
And again, when Dr. Mitchell is referring to we, he's talking about this government, this United States government. So racist monkey memes, ape memes, that's one thing. But then when it comes to practical policy that saves people's lives, that's a mess too. It is a comprehensive, show. All right. To that point, Dr. Mitchell, what about, because he's got his man over there, RFK, and full disclosure, RFK and I knew each other. I don't know what happened because it wasn't like that. And then he's over here. What is the latest in terms of vaccinations and medicines, and at what risk are we in with some of those decisions about what people should or should not be taken? And he's saying everything that we take is causing all kinds of other complications. Where are we on that right now?
Well, it's vaccines are being dismantled. I mean, the fact that all vaccines are being suggested to be optional, right? So this Health and Human Services under this secretary, he has created such confusion amongst the American population that there are people that think that their vaccines of their children should be optional, right? And what happens then with this false premise that, well, all care should be discussed between the physician and the patient. Well, all care has always been discussed between the physician and the patient. with particular mandates that keep safe those individuals, that those particular young people that either can't get vaccinated because they have some autoimmune disorder that keeps them from being able to be vaccinated. We want to protect our communities. And so it's our communities that are most disenfranchised,
Right.
that say, well, if it's not mandatory for my children to get vaccinations to go to school, and I have to take off work, I have to, travel. If I'm in a rural community, I have to travel 80 miles to get my child vaccinated. The pressures of accessing the American healthcare system are so great that if it's not no longer mandatory, I'm not going to do it, because they must know something, that my child and the children around my child will be protected even if they don't go and get vaccinated, which is not the truth. The truth is that polio was eradicated, but now you're suggesting that the vaccine for polio is no longer required. It's a
Mm.
relationship between your physician. It's your own decision. It's always been your own decision, but we know that every child needs to get vaccinated from polio, because we knew what happened to children, to thousands of children that died from polio when polio wasn't available. This measles outbreak, just a couple days ago, the CMS director, because there's a measles outbreak in South Carolina, has said, go get your measles vaccine, right? He's saying it now, but there's this confusion that the leadership within our healthcare system is creating, that has people stepping away from vaccines, when we know that it is a preventative measure that has better risks, better benefits than it has risks. These types of things are going to lead to deaths, and it leads to worse outcomes in our communities, and particularly communities of color. So what is coming out of the CDC? I would suggest that anyone who's listening to your show, that they do speak to their doctors about the vaccines, but they also go to trusted sites like our site, the National Medical Association, www.nmanet.org, so that you can make sure that you're reading what we're saying about vaccinations, how we're supporting the American Association of Pediatrics, and their put what they put forward surrounding vaccines. We've signed on to that, just like many other associations, and that differs from the CDC. It differs from what our government, that we've been relying on so heavily for the last several decades now. We can't trust it.
Yeah. 202-588-093. Now, further on that, what do you say to African Americans? Because we know in our community that can be a thing. There's always been this issue when it comes to vaccinations. The Tuskegee experiment comes to mind. That's an ongoing debate. So someone's listening right now, Dr. Mitchell, as president of the National Medical Association. I want you to make the case why we should be vaccinated or participate in that, unless there's just some overwhelming religious reason. I mean, people have the right to say no, but that's not as bad as an individual as the whole government saying no, and that people just don't have that as an option. But talk to our audience and our people, if you would, about what that means. Because at the end of the day, so just for me, I think of it as defensive driving. You know how to drive. We know how to drive. But y'all know there's some other folk out there on the road who don't know how to drive. So you have to be aware of that. So if you're healthy and your family's healthy, everybody else isn't. And we are biological beings, people, human beings, just like we talk about animals, plant life, rodents, carry diseases. Any biological carbon-based entity, right, Dr. Mitchell? It can carry something. And to think that to put your trust in just folk walking around out here with nothing on them, smallpox killed much of the indigenous population when the Europeans came in. We know what polio did. But Dr. Mitchell, talk to those who are watching and listening who are like, man, I'm not with these vaccines. I'm not taking no vaccines.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because the American medical establishment has long not been friendly to black community, to the black community. And this is another example of that, by the way. This is this is another example of how they haven't been friendly. And we call it the Tuskegee experiment. It was really the US Public Health Service that did that at Tuskegee. So we give Tuskegee, we say Tuskegee, and almost gives Tuskegee a bad name.
Right.
But the reality of it is, it was the U.S. public health system that knew that they had a cure, a medication that could cure syphilis. And instead of giving that cure to the black men that had syphilis, they allowed the syphilis to continue to promulgate to disease so that they could study the disease states of syphilis all the way to tertiary syphilis, which is neurosyphilis, right? But they had penicillin, and they knew penicillin, which is a drug out of a manufacturer that we've created, that if you took that penicillin, that penicillin would prevent further breakout of the syphilis. So our community, we take medications. There's no doubt we take medications. Could we create an immune system in many of us where that immune system doesn't necessarily need vaccines? Yes. What vaccines do is, in the majority of vaccines, they take a piece of the body of the virus. Most of it, the dead portion of the virus, and they place that dead portion of the virus in the body so that the body can react to a piece of that, what we call protein, and mount an immune response. The great thing about the human body is we have memory cells, and those memory cells then create antibodies to that piece of protein. So if we were ever to see any bit of that actual disease in our body, the body automatically recognizes it, gets rid of it, and you may have small amount of symptoms, but you would never get the full-fledged disease. The greatest example of this, we've talked about polio, we've talked about smallpox, but I want to talk about HPV vaccine, the human papillomavirus. The human papillomavirus, 90% of all cervical cancers come from human papillomavirus of the cervix. By getting an HPV vaccine, you almost 90%, which is daggone near all of them, you will never get that cervical cancer.
Wow.
Cervical cancer is still killing Black women at a higher rate than anyone else. Right now, Black women in general, get Pap smears, right? Those Pap smears slide. You look at a slide, you look at the disease slide, and if they are infected by HPV, or if they're levels of cancer, then you'll get your treatment from there. But if you take an HPV vaccine, then your likelihood of getting cervical cancer goes to almost zero. It is functionally a cure of cervical cancer if we were being fully vaccinated against HPV. Those are the types of things that we need to really make sure that our community understands. The other thing, I'll stop here, is we need to be in clinical trials. Not only do we need to, as Black folk, understand that we can embrace the science, because the science in medicine is really led by a lot of Black folk, and we understand this, but clinical trials for medications that are truly helping people are being done without us involved because of our hesitancy. So there's a company that has a phenomenal triple negative breast cancer chemotherapy. But in their clinical trials, and triple negative breast cancer affects Black women more than it affects anyone else. It's a worse outcomes. Well, they had less than 10% of Black women in their clinical trials. So there are institutions like Howard, like Meharry, that are engaging in genomics research, clinical trials research. The National Medical Association has programs to get us into the clinical trials so that when the medications are developed, they're developed understanding our particular genome, our particular biogenome, so that when they're effective in Black and brown people, just as if they would be effective in anyone. And so these are the types of things that we have to have conversations about. I'm willing to come anywhere in the country and have conversations about vaccines, about clinical trials, to really talk through this hesitancy so that we can ensure that we're getting the cures that are being developed right now all over the world.
Let's try to get some calls in the moments we have remaining. Let's go. Angela, are you there? Can we bring Angela up? I'm sorry, that's my fault. Hold on, we got you. I got to bring you up. There you go. Angela, you there?
Hello?
Who is this?
This is Rick calling from Germany.
Okay, go ahead, Rick. Quickly, please.
First of all, I would like to say that Black people don't talk about science enough. Malcolm X recommended that history be what we study. And I say that if Malcolm had lived to see the U.S. space program proven a fraud, he would have recommended that we study science as well. Tuberculosis runs in my family, and not tuberculosis of the lungs, but tuberculosis of the bone, brain, and spine, tuberculosis of the body, which is latent and not contagious. But I want to say it becomes a mildly crippling disease as you age. What is your opinion or your factual knowledge of the resurgence of tuberculosis in the world, both the lungs and the body?
Well, tuberculosis continues to be something that we want to track and make sure that we're watching. TB is one of those infectious diseases that we test for, particularly in healthcare providers before they get jobs in our community hospitals and community clinics. We know that tuberculosis is highly contagious and still is claiming lives all over the world. And so we continue to watch out for tuberculosis and make sure that we are testing for it and watching out for its impact globally.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate your call. Theodore, are you with us? God bless you.
I am. How you doing?
Fine. Quickly, please.
Okay, I'm not a doctor, but I have heard a number of times RFK speak, and he's not against all vaccines. He says he's against vaccines that don't work. And he gives some very good statistics every time I hear him. Statistics that other places do not give.
Well, hold the Theodore. I don't want to do that. I mean, I don't want to platform some of that. Most of what RFK has shared has been debunked and considered very dangerous, right, Dr. Mitchell?
I don't think that's the case. That's why I'm calling. I've heard him.
But let me let Dr. Mitchell respond. Go ahead, Dr. Mitchell.
Yeah. So again, it sows confusion.
Before he answers that, do you think debunking.
Theodore, you started this by saying you're not a doctor. Neither is RFK.
I admit that freely, but I do know.
But RFK is not an authority either.
Very well, and I know that RFK gives statistical answers that make a lot of sense. And I think that because he's still debunked by the media, is it more him, or is it because the media is getting a lot of money from the pharmaceutical companies?
Well, both entities can be held accountable. What the pharmaceutical company's behavior doesn't
answer what I just asked.
I'm sorry. No, I am specifically answering what you just asked. Let me try it again. You asked Theodore. I'll listen to you. No, Theodore. We're not going to do that. I'll listen to you.
That means you accept that.
Okay.
What you hear from the media.
We're gonna move on because you don't want to listen, brother.
The media.
All right, let's move on. Is Angela there?
Yes, I'm here.
Go right ahead, Angela. Go right ahead. Bless you.
Yes, good morning. You touched on this a little bit. Can you say a little bit more about this issue of disparities in healthcare? I'm concerned because I am the first generation in this country that did not live through segregation. And I noticed that a lot of young physicians, regardless of race, seems to have some outdated ideas about Black women in particular. What is going on in the medical schools?
When you say outdated ideas, what do you mean?
I mean, they expect you to have, number one, basic knowledge of how your body works, how to take care of yourself, that you're not a smoker, a drinker, a drug user, that you have a college education. It's surprising to them. These are not, new achievements for Black women.
Are these young Black doctors or young white doctors?
Black, Hispanic, white, it doesn't seem to matter.
Go ahead, Dr. Mitchell. You want to respond to that?
Well, there's an importance of just making sure that we have cultural competency in how we provide care. And what does that mean? That starts, obviously in the home, but it also starts in medical school. Right now, there used to be a requirement for medical schools to have diversity in their recruitment and retention for medical schools. Right now, the Liaison Committee for Medical Education has removed that requirement. So it is no longer required to ensure that there are Black or Latino or women that are in medical schools. That is no longer a requirement. That is up to the medical schools themselves. And so if you think that there is a lack of sensitivity to Black women and how they're treated within institutions of health delivery now, then as we continue to educate the future of healthcare providers, and those that have diverse backgrounds are excluded from coming to medical schools, then it's only going to get worse. One of the other things that happened in the HR1 bill is there's a cap on graduate student loans. And so those that can't afford to pay cash to go to medical school and need loans to go to medical schools will not even be able to get the loans that they will pay back to go to medical school. So now you have to not only be a white man, but you have to be rich in order to go to medical school. And that's what we're fighting against at the National Medical Association, this equity lens. And then to the last caller, as it relates to what RFK promulgates, is that the best lie has a bit of truth in it. And so the confusion that he's sowing surrounding vaccines uses a bit of truth in order to sow an enormous amount of distrust into a portion of our healthcare delivery system that's shown and proven great results. I was the mass fatality manager for Washington, D.C. during COVID. I saw what COVID did. I did the autopsies, one of the first autopsies on a COVID-related death. I saw it myself. This is not hyperbole. thousands of individuals that I put in reefer trailer coolers. And then I saw what happened when people had access to the vaccine. And I saw the decrease in severity of disease. And I saw how people were able to live through contracting COVID. And so that COVID vaccine saved millions and millions of lives across the world.
Yeah.
And that's proven, particularly those that are disenfranchised, that had higher burdens of cardiovascular disease, obesity, and diabetes, which were found in our community. That's who's going to be affected the most. And so when you sow distrust in the health and science and medicine, people don't know who to turn to. And I'm telling this population, our community, the listeners here, turn to your physician, talk to your physician about what they think, and talk to and get your information where you have credible sources.
No question about it. And we appreciate, we're just about out of time. I do want to mention, though, talk to us about the study you've been involved in, where how all of this, the related deaths, and this goes back to our earlier topic in terms of stress and racism, the disproportionate number of deaths that we're subject to because of incarceration and contact with law enforcement.
Yeah, so I wrote a book called Death in Custody, How America Ignores the Truth and What We Can Do About It. You can get it wherever you get your books, but I also was part of a study by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, which is really the ivory tower of science and medicine in this country. And that commission looked at strengthening the medical legal death investigation, that's coroners and medical examiners, through the lens of death in custody, and how there is not a adequate collection of data surrounding those that are dying in the custody of law enforcement. And that is just as pertinent today. And we're not talking a lot about it, but we are talking about the death that just happened in Minnesota, right? We are also talking about that ICE detention has had its highest amount of deaths in the custody of ICE since 2004. But there is no federal registry for us to truly understand how people are dying. And these are not just homicides. I mean, these are individuals that are dying from their cardiovascular disease, their diabetes, they're dying from stroke, they're dying from infectious disease. But the question becomes, were those deaths preventable? What the National Academies found was that the majority of deaths that have been recorded, right, and it's not all of them, because we don't have that full data set, and that's very important for us to understand. The majority of them are dying in a pretrial phase. Individuals haven't even gotten their day in court, and they're dying in our jails and prisons from whether it be natural diseases or suicides or accidents and alike. And so what the National Medical Association has called for, and so did the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, is a checkbox on the U.S. standard death certificate, that anyone that receives a death certificate in this country, that box be checked whether or not they died in custody or not. Because once we can capture the data surrounding the circumstances of these deaths, then we can start researching, can we improve conditions within our carceral system, within our detention system, that leads to outcomes. The majority of individuals that go into our jail systems, they get out, they come out. And so we don't want our jail systems to be inherently, our prison systems to be inherently a death sentence. We want to make sure that individuals that go into our carceral system that can't get care on their own, they can't access care on their own, the government has to provide that care, that we're providing that care. And then obviously the homicides that may be associated with the conduct of our jailers and our law enforcement. We need to make sure that we're clear on those as well.
My brother, you have said you want to do this more often. Let's do it, because it's so much. And I'm even getting questions offline Black women, infant mortality, so many topics, and I hope
So
that
many
was
topics.
yeah. So let's try to have you come on more often. And let me just say, folks, I am the product of three mentors who were very involved in the NMA. My mother's brother, my uncle, Dr. Joseph Petway, um, a member of my extended family who was also like a father to me, like my uncle, Dr. Ivan Davis. And Dick Gregory used to go to NMA every year, right? And so, and I've been. So we, as much as we can learn about our health and our survival, is what we must do. Dr. Mitchell, and also it's Black History Month. We need to understand the National Medical Association exists because the American Medical Association would not let Black physicians in.
That's right.
Okay. So we need to understand that. Dr. Mitchell, please tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find us at www.nmanet.org. Reach out to us. Another Black History nugget. In 1965, it was the NMA that supported the National Health Safety Net, now known as Medicaid and Medicare, that end up being CHIP and SNAP. Millions and millions of people's lives saved because they had access to health insurance. It was the National Medical Association, W. Montague Cobb, that stood to fight for that. And we fight today, just like he did in the past.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My brother, appreciate you, man. And we will do this more often. And probably been said what Dick Gregory and I used to do, we would go on the air and just take calls about people's health. And so maybe we can set that up one day and you and I can do that and just take some calls. And
man, to have you say my name in the breath of a Dick Gregory is just an honor, just to hear you say that. So you tell me where I need to be and I'll show up.
Love you, brother.
Love you, bro.
Talk to you soon. Okay. All right.
All right.
Dr. Roger Mitchell, folks, who is the president of the National Medical Association. It is an honor to have him with us. We're going to keep it moving. A lot of time left, but we need to check in with our sister because there's so much going on in the world. Lauren Victoria Burke of Black Virginia News and the NNPA. She's got that Virginia Tech hat on. We'll excuse that. Lauren, you all and Lauren, please let people know how they can find you and how to subscribe. Lauren has one of the best publications out here, and there's the coverage. There's not enough coverage in Virginia. I love, what's the sister's name? Who's in the state? Who's a state senator who curses everybody? Louise Lucas.
Senator Louise Lucas. Yes.
Y'all need to check her out. She is hilarious.
Yep. Just writing about her because she basically used Trump tactics, and they're using Trump politics in Virginia, and Republicans suddenly don't like Trump politics. Isn't that amazing?
That's interesting. And so is this Obama 8 post? Is that a game changer? I mean, is that for some? I mean, it seems like folks are like, you know what, can't do this anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's certainly the country club Republicans out there who've always hated the racism part of this. That's why you're seeing a lot of never Trumpers that immediately abandon ship, largely because of that whole look. You look like a white supremacist and a Klansman, I'm out. They may agree with the policies, but they didn't want to be, connected to that, at least not overtly. And of course, the problem with Donald Trump is that his racism is right up front. He wants you to know about it. He wants to brand to racism. He wants to brand to racial grievance. And he ain't trying to hide that. Never has in his entire life.
Yeah. And but it seems particularly now, it's always been that way. But it seems now he's also trying to create as much distraction from Epstein.
Absolutely. And that Epstein, boy, you talk about the gift that keeps on giving. That thing is endless. Names keep dropping. Information keeps coming out. They don't want to have anything to do with that. They have 2 members of Congress that with their hands at the steering wheel driving that train, and the train never stops. So yeah, he's trying to distract from the fact that they're trying to cover up the actions of a pedophile. I mean, that's just what it is. His name is in there. They spent all that time redacting it at a warehouse in Virginia, by the way. And they didn't redact apparently everything. And now they've got a problem. They're calling the Clintons in the members of the House are calling the Clintons in for a deposition. That's going to blow up in their faces. I mean, the whole thing is just going to blow up in their faces. And that's what you're watching right now.
because if the Clintons go in by right, they can have Discovery go down.
Mhm.
And the Clintons are like, they answer, oh yeah, we coming. And to me, that's a tip off. Maybe y'all don't want them to come if they so willing to come.
Yeah, well, what
Right
they're
away.
trying to do is do it in closed doors. So if you do it in closed doors, you can leak what you want to leak. You saw Bill Clinton made a statement the other day. I want this stuff to come out. I want this to be a public hearing. Y'all
Right.
want this to be a spectacle? Let's have a spectacle. Last time when they did it, and it was Trey Gowdy over Benghazi and Hillary Clinton, it blew up in their faces, and this will blow up in their face. You know, they're never governing. The modern Republican Party, which is gone. I mean, the old Republican Party is gone. Now we have the MAGA Republic. They're never in governance mode. They're always in grievance mode. They're always in let's see who we can hate mode. Let's see who we can piss off. Let's see what money we can steal and what contract we can write to get billions of dollars in our bank account. That's it's a mafiosa production. You know, it has nothing to do with governance.
So here's a question I have for you, and I'm just trying to figure this out myself. Because there's the pedophilia, then there's the influence that Epstein and his wife had, and if they had their hands in everybody's stuff, they were consulting with everybody on their businesses, their foundations, and their setups. So my question is, why was this dude so highly influential? What was he really selling to people? And the fact that, I mean, he touches everybody except us. I mean, there's nobody we know, but he touches everybody, which to me, Lauren, lends to the theory that he was some country's intelligence agent. I mean, you can't even get close to the people he got close to in the way he was in everybody's scenario.
You know, I don't think it's anything more complicated than he has a lot of money. He had a ton of money. People are, particularly people in politics, are attracted to people who can throw big parties at big houses. He had basically a building in Manhattan. I don't know that you can say that was a house. The thing looks like a building in Upper Manhattan. And I think that these people were attracted to that. And then you own an island and you're inviting people to parties. Like, I just think that on its face, without getting into the rest of the criminality and obviously the pedophilia and all that stuff, I think that alone is enough to get people to return your phone calls, return your invites, your RSVPs, and show up to your events. I mean, in the political world. Now, of course, I'm sure the rumor was out there that the parties he was throwing involved sex with young girls. There's no way that they did not know, that these people did not know, particularly your frequent flyers. Come on. You knew what was going on, you know,
Yeah.
and that's why you have to be careful when you read these documents. I'm still a huge believer in due process, not just because I come from a law enforcement family, but because I've seen people get burned badly with lack of due process. So I do get the fact and respect the fact that there are names that are coming up of people who were not necessarily involved in criminality, may have been there for one thing and then that was it, or maybe mentioned in one email. But then you've got people clearly who were involved in this, right? And they know what was going on. You saw the Elon Musk email, you know, when's your next wild party and I want to be there, you know, that type of thing. It's not to say that we know and can confirm that he was involved in any criminality, but the point is, come on. But to answer your question, I think money drives a lot. As somebody who's been involved in politics, rich people get their meetings, they get their phone calls returned. You know, I mean, it's just that's what it is.
Yeah. So the Obamas have not responded, correct?
I don't think they have, nor should they. I don't think they have.
You don't think so?
You know, look, the Republicans are playing with fire. Like you want to bring in Barack Obama because you're so obsessed, because you're jealous, because you're insecure. President Trump with Barack Obama, which he has been for years. They are about to lose the midterm elections unless this president steals the elections or does what he did in Fulton County, has the FBI go in and raid the ballot box. Okay. Unless they're planning to do something like, they're about to lose and lose big and lose huge. It is all but certain that they lose the House. And now there's a discussion that is starting about the Senate, which I didn't even think about. That's 55, 54, and one independent. And now there's talk that they're going to lose the Senate. I don't know whether you saw the polls this morning, but Jasmine Crockett is polling ahead of Tallarico. All right. So with all that progressive whining about Jasmine Crockett and her campaign is a joke and all that, I think 2 polls came out this morning showing her ahead.
Good. That's definitely some good news.
Mhm.
You're a journalist. Would love to get your thoughts about what happened with Don Lemon and Georgia Ford, and then basically the overall attack on journalism.
Well, I've got my free Don Lemon shirt on. I thought today was
Ah,
his court day. I
okay.
made a free Don Lemon shirt. Black Virginia News has a store, so I was so pissed off I made a shirt. At any
Good.
rate, I think he's got a court date coming up this week. I thought it was today, but he was live on his show this morning, so maybe it's not today. At any rate, that was intimidation. I don't know whether you saw Don on Jimmy Kimmel, but he explained how that went down. He's in an elevator, and these people come up, and he didn't specifically say this, but I got the feeling they were plain clothes, so you don't even know who this is. And of course, so he turns to them and says, "Who are you? You know, where's
Mhm.
your warrant?" They don't have a warrant. Somebody's got to run out and get. This is all completely ridiculous, by the way. All right, you do realize, like, not having a warrant, not having ID, not showing, not identifying who you are. You know, I am so and so. I'm here to arrest you for this. These are your rights. These are standard things that are being violated with regard to due process. This whole thing of wearing the mask, it's all ridiculous. My father was a cop in New York. He had a name tag on his chest that said R. Burke on it. His badge, his shield number was 1311. Okay. Everybody knew he was. He didn't wear a mask. None of the 40,000 cops in New York wear masks. This is all ridiculous, is what this is that you're watching.
Right. And you mentioned 40,000 cops in New York. In Minneapolis and some of these other cities, they have more ICE people there
Right.
than they actually have uh, local law enforcement,
That's
municipal
right.
law enforcement. Not to mention the fact, Customs and Border Patrol, the CBP, are
Right.
supposed to be on the border. That's why it says border.
There are
Minneapolis. I'm sorry, go ahead.
they're arguing that the border to the north is the border that they're talking about. There's some rule in the code that says that you can be within a certain uh area of space to the border to the next neighboring country. So their argument is, oh, we're near enough to, you know, Canada, whatever. You know, this is all nonsense. They say whatever the heck they want to do whatever the heck they want. And I'm telling you, the pendulum always swings back in politics. And when it swings hard. We're getting the backswing from Barack Obama and their fear that a black man was in charge. There's going to be a backswing to what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't think that.
Well, and the Barack Obama thing is one thing, but the backswing started probably at the latest with Renee Good, and continue. I mean, you're killing white folks. I mean, you just, you know, even white folks. Wait a minute, you killing white people. What is that about?
Yeah,
You,
you see
and,
what that
and
is.
those
Go
were
ahead.
executions.
Right. And on video, by the way. I mean, it always amazes me. George Floyd, Eric Garner, they see the video right in front of them and they keep doing the same thing. That's why the body camera thing is always slightly amusing. I mean, they know the body cameras are on, not these guys, but whoever they are, by the way. See, I don't call them ICE agents. We don't know who they are. We don't know that this is sworn law enforcement. We have no ID. We have no proof of who these people are until they get to court and we see the names and then we see where they may have worked. We really don't know who they're. At any rate, this is white people getting treated like black people. And when white people get treated like black people, white people wake up. They know what that looks like. We've been talking about this for years. John Lewis, they had an argument with John Lewis at the March on Washington about the police brutality section of his speech and another section that he had to take out. Malcolm X was talking about this, right? The march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, that started with a police brutality incident of someone getting shot, right? Jimmy Lee
Jackson.
Yeah, right. So I mean, this police brutality thing, we in the black community have been talking about this for years, most of it off camera. Now it's on camera. When it was on camera with us, nobody cared. Now all of a sudden, when it's white women getting shot in a car, now all of a sudden it's a thing. And this guy, you know, Alex Purdy getting shot 8 times in the back. You got to be kidding me. ICU nurse. And by the way, his family should be suing. They should be suing Christy Nome and Stephen Miller for defamation. I'm waiting for that. They hired an attorney because all that talking about he was a terrorist, that's all nonsense. So let's see what happens with that.
Lauren, let people know where they can find you, where they can get a free Don Lemon shirt.
They can get a free Don Lemon shirt at Black Virginia News' shop. If you go to Black Virginia News, which comes right up on your Google, if you put in Google Black Virginia News, it's right there. But there's a merch store. You go and it says merch, and then boom, the Don Lemon shirt is right, and the free Georgia Fort shirt is right there.
Good. Wonderful. Lon, we thank you. We'll be seeing you again. Thank you for joining me today on
Thanks
show.
a lot. Thank you.
Appreciate her analysis as well, y'all. Very, very important. All right, folks. That is it for today's edition of MIP on 89.3. Glad you all could join us. We'll do it again next Monday. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.